How do you draw a cartoon face? And in 5 simple steps. To get started, of course, we first gather some references. But how do you choose your references? Tip number 1. As a beginner, I would recommend drawing a set of characters of 2 or 3. This way, we can play up their differences with comparative stylization. Tip number 2. Have at least one reference from each angle, front, 3/4, and side. Some people's likenesses are very topographical, while others are very feature-centric. Tip number 3. Pick references that actually look like the person and not the prettiest or your favorite picture of the person.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to shellac her with makeup and I'm going to blast her with light to soften up all those features.
I am glowing like an angel over here.
Now that we have our references gathered, the first task at hand is to roughly establish the overall shape of the face. Is the overall head shape round or angular? Is the face tallish, wide-ish, or about equal? To know this, we have to compare a person's face to the world or to the average, which could be rather advanced. What we're going to do here instead is to limit our comparison only to the ensemble of references we've gathered. To me, Timothy's and Leia's face are about average, being a slight rectangle, and Zendaya's face is slightly shorter by comparison. Step 2. The third. The average face is roughly composed of 3 equal thirds. In this simplified cartooning method, we will choose one of the following 3 scenarios. All thirds are equal, one of the thirds is bigger, or one of the thirds is smaller. Keep in mind that most people's faces don't deviate too much at all from the average. It is usually subtle relative and contextual differences that make us perceive what we do. For example, I personally feel Timothy's middle third is slightly longer, but this is perhaps more due to the narrowness of his nose bridge. Leia's middle third might seem slightly shorter, but this is perhaps due to the roundness of her nose. And Zendaya's top third is probably actually shorter due to the baby hair lining her forehead. Step 3. Features. First, notice the overall goggle shape of the eyes and the brow. Then zooming in to consider the size and placement of the eyes. Are they big or small, and are they close together or far apart? And finally, we decide the angles of the eyes and the shapes of the eyelids. Leia's eyes are probably normal sized, but I feel like the squinty expression is very iconic to her likeness. For the nose, focus on capturing the overall box shape. Take note from the profile view or the 3/4 references. Comparatively speaking, Timothy's nose is much more prominent, and Zendaya's nose is rather at the bridge. And we can see there is a little curve on Leia's nose. For the bulb of the nose, use the simplest shape possible and stretch it to fit the overall shape. For the mouth, focus your attention on the 3 major lengths, the philtrum, the lips, and the chin size. Then mark down the widths of the mouths. I feel Timothy's mouth is relatively more narrow, and Leia's lips are thicker, and I also take note of the slight downturn mouth that Zendaya wore frequently for Chani in the movies. Now that we have our rough sketches, we can start our cleanups. Use simple lines of straights and curves. That way we don't accidentally introduce exotic and complex shape languages for these simple sketches. Try to keep overlapping shapes clean with proper overlapping lines. For example, the cheek shape should come in front of the jawlines. Be careful drawing in the laugh lines. Generally, for young people, we only draw in the beginning part and the end. Otherwise, it could age your character tremendously. The coloring here is very simple. On a separate layer, I very lightly added shadows all around the edges of the face, and 3 simple lines for under the brow, nose, and mouth. Then I added in the base color. The super important part is to add a barely noticeable layer of red for blush. Then for final touches, I added a slightly lighter color for the skin highlights. For Timothy, I added some color dodge for his eyes. And for Leah, I had to add some extra darkening to the deeper part of her hair in the cowl. Thanks for watching. Please leave a like or a comment for what you guys would like to see next. Now go draw a million cartoon faces.